Hi, I'm Pam Thomas. I'm excited to have you here for this More Than Mindset experience. I This has been a while in the making, and I'm very excited to finally launch the program and get started with working with you all to help you uncover the hidden programming that's keeping you from achieving your maximum potential in your life and in your business. Most of you have already been through the Break Free from Money Blocks workshop, which is actually a little bit of what we'll finish off today. But let's start with some housekeeping issues. So first and foremost, I want to let you know that as of this evening, you all will be set up in our community. And so the community is called Align, and in there you'll find it's like a client portal. So you'll be able to find all of your information, the contracts, um, your subscriptions. Well, not that you have a subscription here. This is a program, one program, but all of the things that you need to manage your account will be in there. And then on top of that, you will be able to find your course, which is also called More Than Mindset. And that will actually be where you'll get to your replays on. So when you're ready to find the replays, go ahead and you'll go into the portal and you'll find it all there for you. So throughout the program, we're going to spend 9 weeks together. Now, this is a strange time because, hold on one second. Hi, Tony. Welcome in. We got started already, but I should tell you all up front, which I forgot to do, is I am recording for the purpose of a replay. So I'm going to keep, unless you need something specific, you can either type it in the chat or I will let you unmute yourself. But I've set everything up so that I can get through the recording part of this. So I want you to have the experience. Please use the chat to communicate if you can. If you need to come off, just let me know and I'll let you know, I'll unmute you. But I'm trying to move through so that people that are watching the replay will have a nicer experience. So throughout the 9 weeks, this is an unusual 9 weeks, by the way, because of the holidays coming up. So typically we would work 3 weeks on and 1 week off. But what is actually going to happen, because it can't work that way. And actually, I'm going to ask you all in the community when you would like to do. We have a 9th one. I had planned to do the first 3 weeks of November and then 1 off, and then 3 weeks in December, and then 2 weeks off, because that moves into the new year, and then finish 3 in January initially, forgetting about what happened last week. So we got one more session to make up, we don't even have to decide right now. We'll get to know each other a little better, and then we can decide later on if we want to make it up sooner rather than later. But we will make up the session. You will have your 9 sessions regardless. What else did I want to say? Okay, so I mentioned the community. So the community is online as soon as this evening. Let me not say as soon as this is over, but this evening, I will set you up in the community where you'll be able to find the course More Than Mindset, which has the replays in it, as well as some more information and your documents. So if you didn't get access to the money map, it'll be in there. All the stuff is in there. It's all there for you to access anytime. And there's also a bunch of other things you'll have access to. It's a client portal. So we're going to get you in the client portal this evening. I'm so excited that you all are here to take this journey with me. And one of the things I love about doing this is that I benefit every time I take people through this experience. We're doing it together. And I've had the opportunity to do it before, but I find new things as I move through this process. Each time there's more insight that I get. So I'm offering that to you because what we're going to do today is actually revisit. I think, well, okay, so let me just say, first of all, there's a couple of you here, but there's also other people who are across the world and the time doesn't work well, who are going to be participating in the process. So this is all, that's why I'm trying to get a nice recording for folks. So this is, we'll see who comes in to the sessions here, but there are other people that are supposed to be participating in the process. So anyhow, we'll see what transpires. Nevertheless, we will have a community online that's like asynchronous, so we don't have to all be together all the time. So if you cannot make it to a session, not to worry, you can always go and find it in the client portal, in the Align portal. So we're going to do these 9 sessions. We'll be having the live calls, but you'll also feel free to reach out via, obviously, the community is the best place, and then you can actually get support from your colleagues that are in the process as well. But I'm there, I'll be there, and my VA will be there to support you if you need help with anything. So make sure you communicate there first. And then if you need more support, you can find my details in the community, and you can reach out by email or phone number. And so I just want, let's see, I wrote some notes because there's details that are specific. I mentioned that I'm recording. Again, I just want to make sure you understand. I'm trying to get a good recording. So please use the chat. I'm going to encourage you to use the chat in the process anyhow, but I want you to use the chat if you need anything. I do have it right in front of me, so hopefully I'll notice as we move through. Okay. Yeah, so we're ready. I think I got all my notes down. Yep. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started on this money map. So both of you already started with a money map, didn't you? If you just drop it in the chat, I think both of you went through at least part of the money map process, so you have a sense of where we're heading. But if you remember correctly, there's 5 types of money, and we didn't really talk about all of them. And let me just back up and take you through the beginning process of where we started with that money map back in that original workshop. And the way I teed the whole thing up is that the truth is we all carry this hidden programming that's blocking our money situation. And it literally is like a thermostat that sets the level of your income and your savings and the amount of debt that you have in your life. You all are here, obviously, because you want to uncover that and see what's there. And get to that hidden programming. And with the process that I'm sharing with you over the next few weeks, we'll actually be able to dissipate that programming and get you freed up so that your energy can go towards building the life that you want, building the business that you want, creating the financial freedom that you want. And I use the word financial freedom because financial freedom is actually not related to a particular number. It may be a particular number for a particular person, but financial freedom is more about your relationship with money and whether or not you feel comfortable with what you have and how you function in the world with money. And that's what we're really targeting here. So I want to tell you upfront, I do not need to know it. Oh, you don't have the money map? Okay, sorry, Tony. Let me get you one. I'm going to drop it in the chat. Thanks for sharing. I can talk, so I have to. This is the money map. So I'm going to drop it in. So if you didn't get it, it's not to worry. It's definitely in the community. And this should be fillable, Tony. So if you want to go ahead and fill it out as a PDF online, I don't know. I use the Mac, so I have that preview program. But if you've got something to type it in there, you can do that. Or you can just write your notes and print it out for yourself later. Either way is fine. But I think it's a fillable PDF. It's supposed to be a fillable PDF. We were having some issues. Yeah, okay, good. You got it. Perfect. There's another thing I'll give you at the end. So if I forget, remind me to give you the script, not fillable. Okay. You can still work with it. It's supposed to be, yeah, okay. So I'll fix that part and put it in the community for you. There's always issues. I love my technology, but nothing ever works totally the way you're expecting it to. Anyhow, back to what we're working on here. Okay, so the last time we were together, and some of you actually only watched the video, which is also good because I think all of the content there was and is related to what we're doing today. But if you did the Break Free from Money Blocks workshop, I remember telling you that there are 5 types of money. And we only covered a few of them because I didn't have time in a workshop to cover all of them. So we're going to go back. Believe it or not, I get a lot out of going back to some of these issues. You unpack things. It's like peeling an onion. There's layers and layers. So never assume that because you've done it once that you've gotten everything. And on the other hand, just peeling one layer can free you up in ways that's really surprising and beautiful. But there's 5 kinds of money. There's savings, debt, income goals, and then finally toxic money, which is a really profound. I had never heard, before I was introduced to this, I had never thought about toxic money, but it is quite profound. So we're going to walk through this. And since you're familiar already with the structure of what we're doing, unless you tell me to slow down, I'm going to move. You have it on your tablet. Perfect, perfect, perfect. So I'm going to move pretty quickly through. You'll have the recordings too, so you can always go back to it. But there's those 5 types of monies that we talk, and there's probably more, but these are big picture types of money. And you'll see as we walk through this process that they all have their own unique types of energy. So there's thoughts, feelings, and connected traumas that we're going to address. These are the 3 aspects of all of these types of money, and they all end up showing up differently. And so that's why instead of talking about money as a big picture thing, we actually bring it down to very specific. And this is how you make a breakthrough. So one of the things about money is a lot of people, and look, I'm not critical about affirmations and those type of things. Of course, it matters that you keep a positive attitude and all of that. But a lot of times when you're doing that type of affirmation thing, you're dealing in like big picture, kind of nebulous, it's not specific things. And if you're not talking about specific things, you may have some impact, but it typically doesn't get to be long lasting. And so what we're targeting here is we're going to go deep so we can get some long lasting results in our lives. That's the experience I can promise. So we're going to start with savings. And we start with savings because, probably not surprisingly, it relates to our sense of security and our sense of selves in the world in a very basic way. So let's start with the savings account. And I want you to write down on your money map handout the amount of money in your savings account. And if you have nothing in your savings account, put a 0 down. It's okay. We'll deal with all of the issues, but I want you, and by the way, you don't have to have the exact number, just something that's a close estimate. And I want you to sit with it. Let's take a deep breath together. And exhale. One more deep breath. And exhale. And I want you to feel what's happening in your body. And I know this is unusual, but trust me, this is the key. What are you feeling in your body? Do you feel some tightness, discomfort, imbalances, tension? And where are you feeling it? So just sit with it. If you feel like you can't sense what's happening in your body, take another breath, exhale, and just start to scan. So one of the things you can do is actually intentionally scan, starting from your top of your head, and just scan down your face and sides of your head and back of your head, and scan up, down your body, all the way to your feet. And I'm going to give you just a couple of seconds here just to, if you need to scan. And I want you, when you are clear about what you're feeling in your body, type it into the chat. Yeah, I want you, no, let's go back to the instructions again. So I want you to look at that number, look at the number and keep looking at it. Not look and look away, but look and stay with it. Yes, it's what the savings, that's exactly what it is. So often we keep it not in a physical way. We have an idea of what our money is and all of that. But when you sit and look at the numbers, it creates a different level of discomfort in our bodies typically. That's why we have you go through this actual writing it down exercise. So I want you to look at the number and sense what you're feeling and where you're, most importantly, where you're feeling it. And you'll understand in a minute why I'm telling you to particularly feel into where in your body you feel any, and you may not feel discomfort. Different people feel different things. And when you start to sense what you're feeling, what's the intensity of that feeling from 1, if 1 is, it's there, but it's not a big deal, to 10 being, I'm very uncomfortable, or I'm very anxious, or I'm very, like, it's a great deal of tightness. There's lots of different things that people tend to feel. And I want to back up too. So this is confidential. So on the one hand, I'm asking you to share. On the other hand, you don't have to share anything with anybody if you don't want to. I don't need to know any particulars to help you do this and through this process. I definitely don't need to know the numbers. It is helpful if you share your feelings, just because what ends up being a beautiful thing about this process, and particularly in a community of people, is that you discover you're not the only person experiencing these issues with money. We often walk alone. We think we're walking alone in our money journey, and actually most of us have similar experiences. So it relieves a lot of pressure for most people when they figure out that other people are experiencing the same thing. So I see you all have not responded, so that's okay. We'll move forward. The second aspect of your savings account we want to talk about is what thoughts start to run through your mind. So again, let's take a breath and exhale, and take one more breath and exhale, and see if you can start to notice any repeated thoughts in your head. Make sure you're looking at the number again. And what are the thoughts that start to run through your head? And if you were to point to the number and finish the sentence, what would you say? So I'm going to prompt you with, you could say, this means that I'm, and you fill out the rest of it. So one of the things that's interesting about this, and I've done it with a number of people, and the most common emotion, feelings that come up when people think about their savings account are, strangely enough, feelings of sadness, loss, and disappointment. Of course, everybody, yeah, okay, yeah. Everybody worries and is fearful about what might happen, but actually, the common thought is, I never feel safe. I never feel safe, and I never feel taken care of. But you may or may not have that. So I don't want to guide you to an answer. I still want you to make sure you're checking in with your body and your mind. And let me just explain one thing. The reason I have you check in with your body first is we want to get in the habit with checking in with our body. I know a lot of us have been taught that our bodies, you don't feel it in your body. Okay, that's just because you're not accustomed to feeling it in your body. But if you've got a tape playing in your mind, it normally is somewhere in your body. So the reason I'm glad you told me that, because there are a number of people who have challenges feeling it in their body, but over the series of weeks, you'll start to get, it could be a small thing, but we've been taught that our bodies are not, we can't trust our bodies, and that's not actually true. The nervous system is a mind-body, it's a mind-body aspect of ourselves. And so what the reality is that when we have an issue with money, it's a mind-body issue. And the body gets the signal first. And our mind is always trying to take over and run the show. Our mind, most of us think we're a mind. Tony, I know you heard me say this before. Most of us think we're a mind dragging a body around that's getting in the way of what we're trying to do. And the reality is that the mind and body are meant to they're meant to work in conjunction with each other. And there's great wisdom in our bodies that we ignore following our mind. And this is why we've got so many ailments in our lives and issues with money, among other things, is because everything's out of balance. So we are going to, for this process, we're going to trust the body, learn to trust the body a little more, because the body gets the signal first. When we are uncomfortable with what's happening with stuff, our body gets the signal first. This is how our nervous system is wired to function. The body knows first. You'll feel discomfort in your stomach, in your back. A lot of us carry between those shoulder blades and in the neck, a lot of us carry the weight of money in those places, the shoulders too. Some people feel it in their heart area. Some people feel it in their gut. Some people feel it in their back. But the body gets the signals first. So I want to encourage you to try to keep integrating this idea that the body's there. But you do have a tape in your mind. You have a thought running in your head, right? Both of you have it? Yeah. Okay. So, yeah. Okay. So I want you to focus on make sure you're writing this down too. So we did the emotion, the feeling, what's the feeling in your body? And the next part of this is what the thoughts that are running through your mind are. And so what I want to do, we're going to try to get to the emotions behind the thoughts. And so some people say things like, I'm such a loser, around their money, and particularly savings, because it does create sadness, loss, and disappointment. And I know it's not comfortable, but if you were to say, I'm such a loser out loud, or I'm so out of control, or whatever the words are that are meaningful to you, and it felt really true, or I don't know how to do it, or why is it that I can't get myself together? What is the feeling that you have when you say those words? What's the feeling you have about money and your money situation if you say those words to yourself? Does it feel like embarrassment or shame or just confusion? So write that down. Make sure you capture the emotions that are behind the thought. Yeah, absolutely. I think pretty much everybody. And fear's always there. Yeah, particularly with savings. But yeah, fear's always there. That's absolutely true. But there's like shame and embarrassment is a nuanced version of fear. And so I want to encourage you to think about all of this differently. We're putting you in a position at the moment where you're starting to feel like uncomfortable. But when you start to realize what the impact of these tapes in your mind is on your body. Because as soon as you see your savings account and you don't like what's there and you're not comfortable with your relationship to your savings account, it sets off a chemical reaction in your body. Our body is a sea of chemicals, and the sea of chemicals is part and parcel of that mind-body connection. So we think we have control over what's happening in our bodies through our mind, but in fact, when the mind decides that you're at risk in any way, shape, or form, and part of feeling at risk is not having enough savings, you feel like you're not safe, that literally sets us into fight or flight. And you've heard of freeze or fawn too, sends us into fight or flight mode. When we get into fight or flight mode, cortisol takes over our system. There's a chemical reaction that happens and sets off a chain of events. You stop being able to sleep. Your stomach gets unsettled. There's a whole series of physical things that happen when cortisol gets set off, and your mind can set it off. And even though the truth is that for most of us, our savings account is not absolutely a life or death situation, our bodies are responding in that prehistoric way. Like, our bodies respond as if we're running from lions and tigers type of thing. When cortisol is activated in your system, your executive function of your brain shuts down. All of the blood goes out to the extremities so you can run. And so you can see that when you actually have a sense in your mind and body that your savings is a problem, and I don't feel safe, and I'm a loser, and I don't know what I'm doing, or something bad is going to happen, all of a sudden you have no ability to make good decisions and you feel uncomfortable. So surprise, surprise, do you wonder why most of us spend very little time looking at our financial situation closely? Because you can understand why, if you feel very uncomfortable, you don't have control over it, and your ability to think clearly about it goes away. It just sends you into a snowball effect of, panic and fear and wanting to run. So why would you try to figure this stuff out when your nervous system is responding in the way it does? Does that kind of make sense to you all? Yeah. It's really a profound thing to start to understand how our nervous system actually functions. And a lot of this research is relatively recent, but now we are starting to develop the tools, like psychologists and psychiatrists are developing tools for people to manage their nervous system. And the tool we're going to use is actually one that's used by therapists to help people with PTSD manage their panic and nervous system imbalances in their lives. And it's simple and very effective, and you have complete control over how all of it works. You guide the process for yourself. I'm just guiding you big picture. You decide where you're going with it. So I couldn't be more pleased to be able to share this with people, because it really is liberating to be able to shift some of these types of things that we now have the ability to get some control over. This may or may not be true for you, but when you look at your savings account, is there anything that you suddenly remember from your past that pops into your head that's affected your savings account, where you look at it and you go, oh, that still makes me so sad or so mad, and I feel like I had such a loss? And if it had, this is the big one, if that hadn't happened, I would have had much more savings. I would have had the ability to manage my money better. And I know I would have had more savings in my account. I think a lot of us have that experience. And a lot of times it's connected to feelings of sadness and loss. So these are what we call connected traumas, traumatic events from our past that involved a loss, where you lost your security on some level. And ever since then, you never feel 100% safe. Now, some people from their childhood, it feels safe. but sometimes actually you even have traumatic events in adulthood where you lost a parent or where you lost a parent as a child, and suddenly half of the money that our family had was gone and it got scary. But you also can have the same type of experience related to divorce or the loss of a spouse or medical issues that you had to manage. There's all sorts of things that we experience in our lives that can cause us to really have a traumatic experience that is very connected to money. So I want you to write down on your page or you can put it in your journal. Some people like to journal this because they can track their shifts over time. So if you have a journal and you want to journal it rather than using my form, you could easily do that too, because it's cool to see the shifts in how you're feeling about these things. I want you to really hear this deeply. Savings is both real in dollar and cents in the tangible thing we think about on this planet, but it's also an energetic metaphor because savings really is indicative of security, safety, like, that. Yeah. Okay. So that's amazing insight. Make sure that's written down so that you remember it. Yeah. And savings does have a role in our lives. It's interesting because, again, we all come from, and we'll be covering this during the 9 weeks. One of the things we're going to do is unpack our family paradigm, which plays a huge role in how we function with money. So when you think about it, it's not surprising that savings means security, safety, and a feeling that I can breathe, I'm secure, there's a buffer, I'll be okay if I can't work for 3 months, that kind of thing. It's a very specific type of money, and when we have it, we feel safer, and when we don't, we feel insecure. So if you have a particular situation from your history, please make sure you write it down. This is all for you. Again, you never have to share anything. I can help you without you sharing any specifics. Sometimes it's helpful for folks to say it, because once you say it, it also loses its power over your nervous system in a certain sense. It's amazing how just speaking words can actually really shift how you feel about it. It's the keeping secrets and holding things that keeps us bound to these things. So as you look at, let's go back and look back at that savings number. As you look at the number, it seems to make sense that you're feeling all the things you feel. You're feeling anxiety or sadness or loss or frustration or whatever your emotion is. Some people get anger, whatever the reaction is. And it's true that what currently manifested in your life is partially because of the external circumstances, but it is also true that the feelings are a big part of why it stayed that way for a while. You were wired and programmed with this habitual way of thinking about it, and the emotional feeling is it's not enough and I don't feel safe. And on some level that kind of started, and then it absolutely becomes a pattern in your life. And then you literally unconsciously manifest money to match that mindset, that view of the world, that worldview. And a lot of times we go, people like us, or people like me, people like my family, we don't do that, or we do this, and all of those things are going to be woven together in your money map and your money picture. So we're going to work on all of that. Now, on the one hand, this is shocking because you realize that you actually have patterns that you didn't realize were there. But on the other hand, you have to remember that once you see it and all of a sudden know that it's there and know how to access the tool. And I mentioned it to you earlier. It is really important that you check in with your body because the body gets the signals first. That's how we're designed. The body gets the signals first. If your mind was spinning while you're trying to run from a tiger, that doesn't help. The mind literally, the executive function of your mind shuts down and all the blood goes to the legs and arms so you can run. That's what's happening. So you always want to check in with your body. So start to use this tool in your life, but in particular around your money, where you're checking in with your body to see what signals you're getting from your body about what's happening. And all of a sudden, just knowing that you have these patterns and then being able to check in with your body and with your thoughts, see which tapes are playing. We have these tapes that play in our head. It's not enough. It's not enough. Or whatever the tape is that's in your mind. Once you get the chance to know what the cues are, you all of a sudden have the ability to pause. And all of us have our own ways. And I'm going to teach you more ways to down regulate your nervous system so that the cortisol stops coursing through your body. But you can actually make choices once you realize that you're in a pattern. So I want to make sure you go back, complete the map, and we're going to move on to the next type of money. So tell me, just drop I'll give you a couple more minutes here, but when you're ready, just let me know and we'll drop into the next type of money. We didn't cover debt in the workshop, so this will be a new thing. Make sure you've recorded all of it because you will want to keep track of where you are. That 1 to 10, hopefully you wrote down the 1 to 10 of how uncomfortable you feel about your savings and all of that, because we're gonna be able to transform that over the next few weeks. Okay. So unless you need me to pause and let me know in the chat, I'm going to move on to debt, the second kind of money. And if you thought savings was uncomfortable, this one gets a little worse for most people. But the debt picture is incredibly important to see. So now guess what? I want you to write down on your money map in front of you the total amount of your debt. And if you have no idea how much it is, and again, it doesn't have to be specific. You're trying to capture a ballpark number. But if you have no idea because you don't open the letters and you don't look at it, just make your best guess. It's okay. Just make your best guess. I want you to look at that number. And I want you to take the breaths again, because you're going to check in with your body first. And I want you to sense if there's anywhere in your body that feels uncomfortable, tension. Maybe you feel your heart pounding. It's tension maybe, but it's a little different. Some people feel queasy, get butterflies in their stomach. Some people feel like there's a weight on their back. And some people don't feel anything, but I want you to try to feel into your body first. And then once you feel and write down, once you make sure you record it, write down what you feel, where you feel it in your body. What's the first emotion that starts to come up? So there's a feeling in your body, like in the physical sense. And then oftentimes there's emotions that start to bubble up too. And if you were to look at that number and finish this sentence, what would you say? This means that I'm blank. You finish the sentence. This means that I blank. What's interesting about this is that, and debt in particular, is that when people go through this exercise, they say some of the harshest things about themselves. This means I'm a loser. It means I'm an idiot. It means I'm a failure. Some of the harshest things. And we have that inner critic that plays all the time in our minds. We're going to work on that inner critic too during the next 9 weeks, which is an integral part of why we have the money issues we have. When people think about their debt, there's actually a program belief that runs habitually. And although it looks like you're reacting to just seeing the number on the piece of paper, that programming, okay. Oh, that's interesting. You're not critical enough. Okay, that's unusual. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. It's just different than most people because that inner critic has a profound impact on most of us. And we'll unpack it more as we unfold the process during the weeks. But this program belief is so pervasive and so overwhelming for most of us. Oh, no. No, okay. So yeah, I understand. Yes. So it's the inner critic. Yeah, we'll explain that. I understand what you're saying now, Tony. Yes, if you were more critical, you think you wouldn't have the debt. Yeah, so let me just share with you. So that's already your inner critic talking. Because something's wrong with me. I'm not critical enough, so I have this debt. So yeah, I see what you're saying. So let's just go into the connected trauma part because a lot of us have a lot of connected traumas around debt. 90% of the time, the emotion associated with savings is shame. So debt and savings are actually connected, which is why we do them back to back. So savings is where we see shame and embarrassment and all of those type of things. And when you look at the debt, it goes even deeper because debt turns out to be a result of something that started as maybe shame or an emotion, but then it turned completely into a traumatic situation that's still unresolved. So a lot of times this ends up being where people have debt from a previous marriage or debt from a bad business deal or debt from college loans or medical problems or debt from a really stupid investment. And all we do, and we've all done it, all we do is beat ourselves up over it. Or the other thing that happens is some of us are still in some sort of emotional and energetic battle with people who've done something to them, who they think ruined them. And because of this, they have this huge trigger that happens and this incredible negative self-talk. And it's a really powerful emotional combination of fear and shame running through your nervous system. And the memory of these types of traumas can come up in an instant. And they shut down your ability to think clearly and have the ability to assess what's true and not true. So I want you to take this in. The American Psychological Association says that 80% of our inner talk is negative. 80%, that inner critic is 80% of our talk, our inner conversation. And right now, I want you to really hear and write down how negative that inner talk is when you think about your debt. And by the way, we get triggered multiple times a day to think about debt by TV, all sorts of things around us, right? So make sure you write this stuff down. The emotions, remember, first of all, we're scanning the body I don't want you to forget to write it down, because sometimes we get overwhelmed by the thought, the understanding, the revelation of what's happening here. But I want you to make sure you jot down the feeling in your body, the emotion associated with the feeling, the tape, that inner critic talk. I'm a loser. How in the world did I get myself into this? Whatever the tape is that plays. And finally, if there's any particular debt traumas that you've had, it's really important to get all of those things down. That habitual negative self-talk is so powerful. And if you start to unpack it and start to realize it's there and listen for it, you'll be surprised at how many times a day you're feeding your nervous system that information. And all of this is to say, you can understand why you get in debt and then you ignore it and pretend like you're not getting the bills and all of the things, because have some compassion for yourself and understand why you haven't taken everything that you have and had a clear mind and managed to get yourself out of debt. It's because your body's literally fighting you on it. Your body and mind are fighting you on it, because once you get into a situation that in which you are in that fight or flight mode, you will not be able to think clearly. So does that kind of make sense to you, that when you go to your job, you can be amazing, and then actually one of the things that's so surprising to many people, including me, is that you would be surprised that probably most people that are in the financial field also have exactly the same issue. So it's not even like they don't know how to manage money. But when it comes to your own money situation, do you see how all of these thoughts and running in your nervous system, they literally act like a wall. So even if you had the best strategy in the world to reduce the debt, you wouldn't be able to do it. And I want you to get that your mind cannot be the only thing that's in control of this. You just because you set your mind on of affirmations does not take care of the fullness of this. And that's why we have to start to have a little bit of compassion for ourselves, because we really have not known how this mind-body connection works until recently. And I don't mean just you and me. I mean, like, in the bigger picture sense, even the therapist and psychologist and psychiatrists haven't really understood the fullness of the whole mind-body complex. And so as we learn more, all of a sudden we have more tools that we can use. So again, we're gonna start to be able to shift this stuff, but so I know we're going through a tough process here, but unpacking it is the beginning, and we're gonna at the end we'll do a quick little process to take you through releasing some of this discomfort that we've been feeling. So I want you to go back, look at your map, make sure you've recorded the things we talked about. Make sure it's written down, because you'll forget it. We're gonna shift some of this before we finish today. So it's gonna take a little longer. Typically, I think these might take an hour, closer to an hour. We might go closer to an hour and a half so that we can get through this piece and really jump into the heavy lifting work next week. So if you've written down what you feel in your body, the emotions that are starting to arise about okay, you got to leave at 3. That's okay. You can catch the recording. It'll all be there. Thanks for coming out, Tony. And you probably, I don't know whether you actually went through, but there's 3 more money parts. So go ahead and do what you have to do, and we'll catch you later. Let's go to the income part of this. So we'll jump into income. I want you to write your income down now. And we're going to do the same thing. Take a couple of breaths. Start to feel into your body first. Start with the body gets the message first. It's the way the chemicals course through your body. The body gets the message first. And notice if you have any sort of tightness, stress, tension, butterflies, whatever the things are in your body. And I want you to notice if you're hearing a little voice in your head that's indicating it's not enough. It's not enough. So if you are having anxiety or frustration or another type of stress, I want you to also make sure you write that down. But listen for the voice in your head. Most of us have this tape that plays about our income. It's not enough. It's not enough. It's not enough. And in fact, I want you to say it out loud. And I know it sounds negative, but actually just speaking the word starts to take the tension down. And when you say it out loud, it's not enough. I want you to write on a scale of 1 to 10, how true does that feel? That your income is not enough. And when it feels true, what's that feeling that triggers when you say it? It's really important that you capture the emotions, because those, between the body and the emotions, those are the two things that will cue you in that you are not necessarily in your clearest frame of mind and your most creative frame of mind. And if you take a step away, you can start to make choices that might be more productive. So we're going to go back to the same sentence we've used before. So if you look at that number and finish the sentence, this means I'm blank. What would you say? Okay. Yeah. Uh-huh. Tony, I see you. Question. Do you have a question that you want to ask? You want to come off mute? Or do you want to just type? Oh, yeah, good question. Yeah, that's okay. You don't have to unmute. You, whatever is meaningful to you, most people do their gross, because net gets too complicated, right? Most people do their gross income monthly, depending on how you, it doesn't matter whether it's annually or monthly. It just needs to be the number that you think of when you think of your income. So a lot of us think about it monthly because we pay bills monthly, but it's not net. That's another, net is adds another whole layer of stuff in there, but and that's not what we're not trying to touch that quite yet. So top line. So that helps you? Yeah. Okay, good. So when we look at income, it's really related to the basic nervous system wiring about money in general. And in particular, it's often how much money there is for people like us. So this is where your family's parent, huge part of the kind of set point in your income. So the way that shows up is multiple ways. On the one hand, it's a set point, like typically people find that they never earn more than their parents earn unless they get clear about this stuff. And they may not even get there. The other part of it has to do with how hard you think you have to work for that money. And that one is often overlooked, because if we grow up believing that money, to have money, you have to struggle and strive and wear yourself out. If we grew up with parents that worked and were barely paying bills, we think that it is a thing that you have to work. It's all about grind. And that's not necessarily the nature of money. It's the nature of our relationship to money. So in our income picture, there's programming around the nature of money in the world. And typically everything in the world tells us we don't have enough. Even the billionaires don't think they have enough. And they have more money than they can probably spend in a lifetime. And they still don't have enough, right? So At a minimum, we believe that that money runs out, maybe not for everybody, but at least for people like us. So every time you think about money coming into your life, your nervous system, yeah, your nervous system's programmed to come up with whatever the emotion you're feeling is: anxiety, frustration, fear. And there's this habitual thought that says it's not enough, and I can never get ahead. I'm a loser. I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to manage my money situation. So often there's a connected trauma that involves earnings, and it can be around things that happened to our parents, the key breadwinner in our family, and how their income was managed or affected, how much they earned, or how hard they had to work for the money, or if they worked and then they got screwed or they lost their job. Or sometimes it's that one parent died and then there was no income. So we want to make sure we address the connected traumas as well. And sometimes the traumas are big, like the ones I just mentioned, but sometimes the family traumas can be small things. For example, we had one person come through the program who had a trauma around earning that was because the person had, as a 12-year-old, raped their neighbor's yard, and the neighbor wanted to pay them. And when her mother walked out and caught the neighbor paying him, the mother totally shamed the child and told them, "You give that money back." And ever since then, the person said, "Whenever I get my paycheck or asked to be paid, I feel ashamed." That's actually a connected trauma too. So that doesn't sound like a big deal, but depending on how the thing unfolds, it can be a profound experience. So what shows up in your income is going to be unconscious programming around your value and your worth based on your family of origin. So people like us, people in our family. And we're not like the Joneses and Millers. We're not like those people over there. So whatever those first set of beliefs are, those are what tend to show up in your income picture. When you look at what got revealed at looking at your income and all the program beliefs, those are the things that set the exact set point in your income. The amount of income that you're earning is exactly where your programming allows it to be. And I know it sounds crazy, but because you would tell me there's the market and this and that and the other, but people's income is totally set by this programming. And you and I both know that people can be in the same job and earn very different incomes. And also people who are in the same job and work twice as hard as everybody else. So there's a variety of reasons why people earn what they do. And even in a company, yes, the external things do play a role, but the fact is we have the ability to shift things for ourselves too. So we get an income set point, and we will not really be able to go beyond it until we clear this programming. And so now we're going to jump on to, make sure you fill out your map. Let's go back just for a minute. I want you to make sure you filled out the map for your income again. So you want to make sure you capture what you're feeling in your body, which emotions start to come up. What's that tape that's playing in your head? For most of us, it's not enough with income, but you need to have that piece of the picture too. And finally, any traumas, any particular memories that kind of created some sort of trauma. And it can be what you think is a small trauma, but if the tape keeps playing, if you have flashbacks to those moments, those are traumas that we can release. So we're on the fourth kind of money now, and that fourth kind of money is income goals. So I want you to write down on your paper an income goal, an amount that would represent doubling or even tripling your income. Write down what you would love to earn. But for the purposes of this, I don't want you to put down, if you only make 50,000, I don't want you to put down 5 million, because that's disconnected and disassociated from reality. And we want to get you in a state where you feel the feelings, not disconnect from your feelings. So if you earn 50, 100,000, or maybe 150,000 is a good number, but that's how you need to think about this. So write down a number that is a step up from where you are now, but it feels like it could actually happen. It's realistic and a step up. Maybe not all the way to millions unless you're there, but something that's meaningful and significant enough that you have to stretch. So now I want you to look at that number, take your breaths, check in with your body, and write down how you feel, what emotions are arising, and what are those thoughts? What's the tape that's playing in your head? And some of you probably will feel excited, which is great. But what I'm looking for is the other side. We get to keep the excitement. That's fantastic. But there's always, unless you are already making the money, there's always another side to it that would come up as the inner skeptic. And that's the part of us that has that programming that we don't normally see or hear clearly. And we want to let that inner skeptic in you speak, because we need to pinpoint what's pushing back in your mind-body system to you achieving your goal. So you get to keep the positive side, and we don't want to mess with that, but we need to also make sure we're unpacking that inner skeptic part of us, which all of us have. So if you look at that income goal and say that's impossible, which will allow your inner skeptic to surface, see how true that feels. Maybe it's only a 5 or 6 on a scale from 1 to 10. But when it feels true, what's the emotion that gets triggered in your body? What are the thoughts that get triggered in your mind? What's the feeling of, wow, me earning more is impossible? So if you were to say that number and point to it and then finish the sentence, and we've done this before, this means I'm blank. You finish the sentence. And I'm going to take you to another level. So I want you to look at the number that you wrote down, your new income goal. And I want you to imagine that I just told you that for the next year, you and I are going to agree that this is your income goal, and you're going to start to try to make it happen starting like tomorrow, this month. What's the feeling that's happening? And how true does this statement feel from 1 to 10? It's impossible. How true does it feel? It's impossible from 1 to 10. 1 is, it's pretty possible. I might have a little bit of doubt. And 10 is, it's completely impossible. Why am I even talking about it? And I just want to point out here that even if it's a 5, not a 10, then you could say that means you're about 50% convinced you could actually make 50% of your target. And if you set the target at double what you have right now, you're exactly at what you believe you can be earning. So it helps you to understand how these set points happen. What are some of the feelings you have? The very common responses that we hear are fear and fear of failure. But there's also the other side, which is that I would have to work so hard and I don't want to work that hard. That's the other side of the coin. And both of those will prevent you from achieving new income goals. Now, we both know that these are limiting beliefs because there are people in your industry that earn even this bigger number every day. So we know it's a limiting belief, but I'm just going to point out something, and I don't know if you're one of these people or not. The pundits say that only about 5% of business owners actually set goals for their income. So I want to suggest to you that this that we're doing here is the reason 90% of business owners and professionals never set a goal for their income. And everybody knows that setting a goal is the most powerful thing you do. I don't have to tell you, there's a million books about it, but nobody does it, because when you write it down, and there's a difference between having it spinning in your head and writing it down, it creates some serious nervous system reactions. So I want you to get really clear about how much this is costing you. This mind-body connection around your income goal costs you literally that amount of doubling your income. So this is why I love teaching this, because we can shift what's happening in our money maps, literally what's happening in our nervous systems, and we can do it with this powerful mind-body tool I'm going to teach you. And when I can get you to shift around your income goal, this is where the rubber meets the road, and you will actually start creating and earning more money. Now, I know you're going to ask, how does that happen? It's not overnight necessarily, but what happens is if the goal is no longer causing a massive negative reaction in your nervous system, but it can become something that you're positively seeking, you start to have the ability for all of your inner resources, and it even gives you more energy when you're not feeling all those negative things in your body and mind. You all of a sudden, you're brilliant, you're inspired, your ideas line up with a new goal, and whether it's a goal in your savings, debt, or your income, all of that starts to line up, and everything you're doing starts to actually guide you towards your goal. And it's always amazing to me how, when I work with people with this, how big things shift in their lives. And it's not just money, but if you're an achiever and you love to achieve, and you're smart and you like to know how to get things done, and then you have a goal that feels impossible, you get demoralized, and that's not surprising. So you don't really put 100% of your heart into a goal that feels impossible. And this is why it's really important to be clear about what's pushing back at our goals within us, and what the feelings and emotions are that are holding us back. And also, the truth is that there can be traumas from our past. There's frequently connected traumas associated with income goals, and we call them goal traumas. And you might have set a big income goal, and you really believed it and worked hard and moved heaven and earth, and maybe even worked so hard you destroyed your health, or it affected your relationships or something, and it didn't work out. You tried to put your energy behind something and it didn't work out. Many of us have an event like that. Do you have an event like that? I need you to write that down if you have a goal trauma. Really important. We're going to go through and completely work on goal traumas. We have a whole module on goal traumas because they can have such a big impact on our ability. Goal traumas act like a dark cloud over our heads, and it's a massive source of negative energy, shame, self-recrimination, and self-doubt. It will prevent us from going forward after things we really want with full power and energy, brilliance, and enthusiasm. So we're going to work on all of that and clear it. So I want you to make sure you jot down all the parts for the income goals. And finally, we're going to talk about this. This last piece. Toxic money is one of the most profound things that I've heard anybody talk about with regard to money. And I had never heard it until relatively recently. I'm a finance professional, but I never heard of it. And it is absolutely observable in my client and the people I've worked with. So there's two types of toxic money. The first one is when you're in a situation where you are owed a certain amount of money and it's being withheld from you, and it becomes a type of battle, and or in some ways you feel like you've been wronged. So the examples could be a battle over child support, settlements that are due, divorces, equitable shares in businesses, inheritances, lawsuits for injuries, all of these situations where the money's withheld and you need to prove that you're entitled to the money or you need the money. Or you might have already received the money at the end, but by the time you got there, you paid a huge price, like a huge amount of lawyer's fees or whatever. It can be an emotional, mental, or physical battle in a court over money for which you paid a heavy price, on a psychological or emotional or even a physical level. The other type of toxic money is dependency. So when you're in a relationship with someone, whether it's a partner or a parent, and it's an unhealthy relationship, but you have to stay in it because you need the money they're supplying you. In order to get the money, you need to be in a disempowered state. You have to give up some of your freedom, true power, who you are, to receive the financial support that you actually really can need from the person. And this also applies to cases of financial assistance from governments, where you can only receive, sometimes you can only receive in a way that's disempowering. So in order to continue to receive it, you feel like you have to prove that your situation is not improved, and so you still need the money. So in both types of toxic money, the undercurrent is that you have to in some way be disempowered or not have much money in order to have a case or to battle, and you need to prove that you need the money. So if you have any situations like that, I want you to write that down. And we need to go back to those same questions. What are the thoughts and feelings? Answer these questions for yourself. What's the relationship to the person and people who you're in this battle with? And how does receiving the money make you feel? When you think about this money and the battle or disempowerment in it, what are the two strongest emotions or sensations you're feeling in your body? What are those thoughts, those beliefs that run in your head when you think about the battle or the disempowerment? And I want you to rate these statements on a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being the most true. So that means that 10 means it's absolutely true and 1 means it's not true. So for 1, you want to say, I have power in this situation. I have power in this situation. Number 2 is I can step out of the battle and set a boundary. How true does that feel? And number 3 is I can create the life I want. So for each of those, I want you to come up with the number from 1 to 10. 1 meaning I have no power in this situation, or I can't step out, or I can't create the life I want. And 10 being I have power. I can step out and set a boundary, or I can create the life I want, for each of those 3 things. So jot that down. So this is the profound thing. Toxic money literally shuts down earnings. It has a very particular thing where it shuts down your earning, but the work on it is more like dealing with an octopus with tentacles, because it involves working through all of the relationship elements that are making up the toxic money. So toxic money mirrors the toxicity of the relationships with the people involved. You need to start working specifically on the relationship elements which make the relationship toxic: disempowerment, power struggle, boundary setting. This is typically usually a big financial trauma for most people, and it requires a lot of work. So I want you to finish jotting down the answers here for yourself. And we're going to even tackle the toxic money over the weeks ahead. Okay, we're drawing it to a close. So we finished the money map now, and now you can see that this is probably not the typical way that you've talked with others about money, but this is a very profound and powerful process. And it's probably the most powerful tool you could have to transform your money picture, but it actually reaches much more deeply into other aspects of your life. And you start to have a sense of it as we walk through some of these experiences, and you know that you saw and felt and experienced certain things that have a big impact on your ability to and how you function in the world now. So when it becomes conscious as opposed to things you're unaware, when you see it, you have the ability to change it and really start shifting things so that you can have a different way of operating. And when your inner world changes, your outer world changes. I want to take you through a quick process that's a tool we're going to use throughout this program. And I'm going to, it's called tapping. And I mentioned to you before, tapping is a process that is being utilized with therapists to help people that have significant traumas like PTSD down-regulate their nervous system so that they can actually start to manage their lives. So I'm going to teach you the process of tapping. And it's an interesting process. And some people are surprised at the beginning of it because the first part of the process is actually a negative tapping round. So what we do in this part of the process is actually allow that inner critic, that voice, and all of those heavy emotions actually be voiced. And what we found in the work is that once you actually say the negative things out loud, they actually have less power over your nervous system. And so we're not going to fight the negative things. We're going to actually honor it and voice all of it. And then the second part of it is what we call the positive part, where we're actually going to embrace the idea of shifting it. And we're open to changing the way that we think about our money and ourselves. And have a seat and we'll just work through this. And you can follow along with me. I'm going to say the words and you just repeat after me. And it's best if you say it out loud. You don't have to say it out loud. If you're somewhere where you can't say it out loud, that's okay too. You can run the thoughts through your mind. But we're going to do the negative part first, and then we'll stop and take a breath. And you'll see that what's surprising is that frequently, most of the time, sometimes you have to tap do more than one process. But most of the time, when you do the negative tapping, you'll notice your nervous system actually down regulates. So let's just start. And so I'm going to show you the points and just follow me. So there's some points here that you feel your collarbone. And then right below them, there's a groove, like a little divot in your chest. That's the perfect spot. And these are, by the way, acupuncture points. So if you're familiar with acupuncture, tapping is related to the acupuncture points of Chinese medicine. And so we're just going to start by tapping here. This is a standard point that I use every day for a period of time. This is another. And the nice thing about the karate chop point, this is called the karate chop point, and you just take 3 fingers and hit them along the side of your hand. The karate chop point you could do under the table if you're in a meeting and nobody will know exactly what you're doing. So that's a cool point. You don't have to hit it very hard, but you just want to get enough so that your body is feeling the tapping. So it's not so soft that you don't feel it. You need to feel it, but it doesn't have to be too strong. It's just a comfortable level. So let's go ahead and start this tapping round. And I want you to repeat after me. It's overwhelming. It's overwhelming. So we're going to do to the head point, and that's in the middle of your head. Every part of my money, and I'm feeling it. It's so heavy all through my body. So you see, I'm tapping. I'm going to share the tapping points with you on your portal. This is so scary. And there's all this shame in my body, all this stress in my nervous system. It's overwhelming. So you can work through the points, or you can just stay with one point, and you don't even have to say the words. You could actually just tap if you don't want to speak. It's overwhelming. No wonder I don't spend a lot of time thinking about my money. All this guilt, failure. Make sure you breathe. Failure in money. I'm so ashamed. I'm just going to honor that heavy feeling. Take a breath. I feel shame. There's a pit in my stomach. Eyebrow point. And what if it never changes? So these are the temple, under the eyes. And it's so awful and scary. I feel awful. All this shame. I've said this to myself a million times. I should know better. I should have made different choices. I should be able to figure this out, and somehow I never can do it and get ahead. It's so heavy. I'm going to honor these dark feelings, and I'm going to honor that I've been carrying them. Maybe even my parents carried them. All of these dark, shameful feelings. I've made so many mistakes. And if anyone saw these numbers, I'd be embarrassed, horrified, and mortified. And people would see the truth about me. That I'm not strong enough, or I'm missing something, and I would be judged. Take a breath. That I deserve to feel bad. And I'm just going to honor that. I've been really hard on myself. Look at these numbers. It's not surprising that I've beat myself up. I've been judging myself for years. And from that place, everything feels impossible and overwhelming. And I'm just going to honor that. I've been punishing myself. And now I'm open to lightening it up. Maybe it's time. All this shame in my body, all this shame about money, shame about earning, about spending, shame that I don't earn enough. I honor everything I'm feeling, and I'm open to lightening the load. I have compassion for myself. I want to heal. And the truth is, I've seen my situation today in a whole new light. I get it. Maybe it's time to let go of some of this. Let go of my long history of self-punishment. I can't move forward without changing things. And I really want to move forward. The anxiety in my body, that programming, fear and anxiety about money, the anxiety wired into my nervous system, and the thoughts, those thoughts I think over and over, I'm going to honor them. and I'm open to healing them for my highest good. Now let's take a breath. And exhale. Now check in and see where your numbers are. And if your number has improved, you can move on to this next part. But if not, go back and repeat this round of tapping one more time. And don't forget to breathe. So it's really important that you keep breathing. And especially after you finish the tapping, but in particular, even during, I like to breathe during the tapping. And you'll feel it in your body when you can take a breath and release. But we're going to move on to the positive round now. So let's start again. I've been really hard on myself to have this much negative programming in my money and to feel like things are disappointing and impossible. This is some hard stuff. It's not great to feel like I don't have enough value or worth to earn more, to feel powerless and disappointed in my money all the time. It's hard. I've lived with that anxiety and shame for years, and I paid a price for that. And I carry it 24 hours a day. Sometimes it wakes me up in the middle of the night and I can't sleep worrying about money. And I'm going to honor that. And I've also been really hard on myself, actually really mean. I might not even be that mean to other people. Sometimes it feels like it's almost ruthlessly critical about myself. I've literally beaten myself down. And not surprisingly, that shows up in my money. And maybe now I have a little more insight into why I do that. But either way, I'm just going to honor it in a new light today. I'm going to give myself the gift of compassion, the gift of understanding. I'm opening my heart, the wisdom of my heart, and the wisdom of my body. And I'm going to understand all of this at a higher level. This is so much bigger than money. It's affecting my money, but it's much bigger than money. And I'm going to give myself the self-compassion and remind myself that I do deserve happiness. I deserve to feel safe. I've never gotten that. And whenever I look at my money, it's a giant metaphor. I have a lot of sadness, and I'm just going to honor that. And I have shame and fear because of this programming I have around money. And I'm open now to changing that. I'm going to honor myself and who I am, who I've always been, and who I am becoming. I'm now more conscious and more compassionate, and that's huge. I'm going to honor who I'm becoming. I'm going to be conscious and deserving when it comes to money, powerful and resourceful. I bless all of the things I wrote down on this piece of paper. It's my current money and my current reality. And it's about me having done my best, but now I know more and it can change. I bless my current reality, and at the same time, I'm open to what's possible and unfolding to me. I commit to holding this compassion for myself in my heart over the next week and saying something new in my head, which is, I deserve better. I deserve more. I want more. And I deserve it. Let's take a deep breath in. And exhale. Okay. So how do you feel? Hopefully you feel better after that. And I'm going to give you some homework for next week. So now I want you to go back, look at your money map, and in your client portal, you're going to see a money tapping script, which has some blanks in it. So you're going to go back and fill in the blanks. I'm giving you the blanks, but you put your emotions in, you put where you feel it, all of the things, all of the traumas, all those things. There's a space for you to put in the important ones. And try to work with the script yourself. So again, there will also be a guide to tapping in the portal that you can use to do your own tapping. And I want to remind you that you can use these points, the karate chop point. You can even do it under the desk and nobody will know what you're doing. You see, you can't tell I'm doing karate chop. And these, I use these all day long. And I like to walk and use these points in particular. For some reason, it moves the discomfort out of my body faster. So I want to just end with a little bit of additional instruction about how to do this over the next few days. So what I found with this is that things will bubble up. So this is not just today having a deeper understanding. There'll be more things that bubble up into your consciousness over the next few days. I want you to keep track of all of that. If you need to put it in a journal, put it in a journal wherever you can find it, because you will want to know and watch the shifts happening in your life over the next few weeks. So I want you to really focus on just taking a few moments each day and settling down, taking a few deep breaths, check in with your system, check in with your body, check in with that tape in your head, see what's happening. You can even check in with the numbers that you wrote down and see if you feel any less anxiety around your income, savings, debt, all those things. And I want you to be open to learning new things about yourself. That's part of what's happening here. We have a lot of programming that we don't even realize is there. And once you let some of that go, there's all sorts of things you're going to learn that are new and different about yourself. It's been a great session. You all have done some heavy lifting. It's fantastic that you decided to commit to yourself and it's not just about money. This sense of financial freedom comes from you being comfortable with your money situation. And it's a very intense process that we just went through. So I want to acknowledge the work that you've done, and we are going to continue to move forward. I'm so excited that you're on this journey with me and can't wait till next week. Please let me know if you need anything. Again, we'll get you into the community by tonight and you can start with your replay. And if you need to go back through again, there's nothing better than taking the time to do a little bit of tapping every day. So if you use your little script, that's great. If you want to go back through the whole thing again, that's also great. You'll find that you'll uncover new things on a regular basis. So yeah, don't forget to use the tapping, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks for coming in.